Well, one of the most important questions, who controls which part of Syria now? The country's HTS rebel group say that they now control the city of Deir el-Zour in the eastern part of the country. That after intense battles with Kurdish-led U.S.-backed forces. The city was held by Kurdish forces only for a few days, replacing the ousted Syrian government military. The Deir el-Zour region is strategically important. It is home to oil fields and a center for oil production. HTS fighters say they also want to advance to other cities east of the Euphrates River that are still under Kurdish control. All right, I want to bring in now Giorgio Cafiero. He is a Middle East analyst and CEO and founder of Gulf State Analytics in Washington, D.C. Giorgio, it's good to have you with us. Let me ask you, the Syrian rebels taking control over the oil-rich town of Deir el-Zour from the Kurdish forces. Is this, in your opinion, is this a part of the plan by HTS to take control of the country's resources?
Yeah, thank you for having me on your program. Good to be with you. Definitely an important development. As I'm sure your viewers are aware, this city is of immense strategic importance. Not only is it culturally important to Syria, but it's also an economic hub. And I think HTS taking Deir el-Zour, taking control of the city is important for the sort of new authorities, the HTS authorities, in their quest to seize power in the resource-rich parts of the country. You know, it was just 2 days before Assad's government fell when the SDF, dominated by the U.S.-backed group the YPG, took control of the city. I think, obviously, there was a lot of resistance from many of the local Arabs there who definitely reject sort of the ideology of YPG, or very suspicious of the group, seeing it as a foreign orchestrated organization. So definitely a lot of local resistance. And for HTS, this was certainly a significant achievement.
Turkish-backed forces, they've also been fighting Kurds in the northeast. How does that fit into HTS's efforts of taking control of different regions in Syria?
Yeah, so obviously really complicated picture in Syria. Different rebel groups are important players here. The SNA, distinct from HTS, is very much allied with Turkey. Some analysts would probably consider the SNA to be a group of proxy forces operating at the behest of Ankara. In any event, the fact that SNA has been fighting the YPG and SDF forces in this part of Syria needs to be understood within the context of Turkey's national interests. Everything that has unfolded since late last month in Syria has provided Turkey with unique opportunities to push back against the YPG, which is linked to the PKK group, considered in Turkey to really be an existential threat. So to get to your question about what this really means for HTS, which is definitely not as aligned, not nearly as aligned with Turkey as the SNA, we're going to have to wait and see what HTS's agenda really is when it comes to the YPG and other elements under the SDF umbrella. We don't know if HTS and Turkey will reach some sort of understanding or not when it comes to these questions about the YPG group, but time will tell.
This new transitional government, do we know how it plans to rebuild Syria economically?
Well, you know, the challenge of rebuilding Syria economically is extremely daunting. My understanding is that Syria's GDP contracted something like 80 or 85% since this crisis erupted back in 2011. Last year, the Syrian economy suffered from hyperinflation. Many of the sectors, the important sectors in the Syrian economy, such as agriculture, hydrocarbons, have been really decimated as a consequence of not only the warfare, but also as a consequence of Western sanctions that have been imposed on Syria for a number of years. So it's going to be really difficult to rebuild Syria. I think the important point here is that Syria will need a lot of time. I understand experts are saying that it would take about a decade to bring Syria's economy back to what it was in 2011. But what Syria really needs is stability, and they need a lot of foreign investment. There are going to be so many challenges that the Syrians face when trying to rebuild their country's economy. This brings us to important questions about U.S. foreign policy and also the foreign policy agendas of European countries, whether or not they're going to lift sanctions. Also questions about the sanctions on HTS, going to be very important when we look at the prospects for foreign investment in the country.
Mr. Cafiero, we appreciate you taking the time to talk with us. A lot of big questions, a lot of unanswered questions about the future of Syria tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.